Hello everybody and welcome to another vlog. How you doing out there? I watched an interesting video the other day here on YouTube and it got me thinking about how sometimes those of us here in Japan who make vlogs about living here, some of our biggest critics are other people that are gaijin that live here. We kind of tend to, there tends to be some gaijin hate, gaijin smash. Alright, that goes around, and this angry green guy comes out every now and then, and I don't know why. But that's actually a subject for a whole nother vlog. I like this video. I won't tell you what the video is yet. I'll put a link down to it when I make a response sort of to it, probably in a few days. But this got me thinking of a tangent today because I was on social media. I was on Facebook. I have my own page over there for Myargonauts, which feel free if you want to go join that. You get updates about the videos. But of course I have my own account, my personal account. If you ask to friend me there and I don't know you, unfortunately I say no. But what happens is now is, I'm 43 and I've got a fair number of friends who I've reconnected with over Facebook because I haven't lived in the United States practically for the past 8 years. So I've got friends from high school, friends from my 20s, and then I've got this whole other group of friends, mostly Jets. And of course people that I've met, locally now, newer people that I've met in the past few years. So I've got this group of friends who obviously are American for the most part. Some of my family are from England. My mom and dad were both born in England. But primary language is English. Then I've got this other group of friends who are mostly American, but of course I know Australians and Canadians and English people, but a lot of them speak very good Japanese. And I have a smattering of Japanese friends. Not as many Japanese are on Facebook, but it's growing in popularity here. For my students and people that I know through my work at my university, I actually created a separate Facebook account because I wanted to obviously not have them be privy to all my private stuff. I like to go on Facebook and talk about, politics or religion or, crazy American culture or something, or just I don't post pictures of me drunk or anything like that, but just be able to talk about whatever. So I keep my private Facebook private, and then I have a separate one for school. And the reason basically there is because I was asked to be put in charge of rooms, like groups, where my students in Japan could meet up with students they were talking to via Skype or chat in Peru or Mexico or China or Korea, etc. With that Facebook, it's all the posts are in Japanese primarily. A few of my students post in English to practice their English, but they usually do the bilingual. They post up here in English and then under it in Japanese or vice versa. So the point I'm trying to make today about the thing that kind of is interesting to me is my friends who have lived in Japan or have studied Japanese and post in Japanese on Facebook. And it took me aback the other day because I was reading posts and somebody just, a friend just posted in Japanese. So right away, for instance, if I posted in Japanese, 65 to 70% of the people I'm friends with on Facebook wouldn't be able to read that post, okay? Because there's a fair amount of Jets and stuff who never became fluent, especially in reading and writing. And then, of course, all my friends who, never studied Japan, never studied Japanese. So it's kind of like, it just struck me back, like, is this person showing off? Are they doing it because they have a fair amount of Japanese friends and they just want to talk directly to them? But they don't care that all their other friends who read their post don't understand what this message says. So it's just interesting to me. I realize it's mendokusai, it's troublesome, it's bothersome to have to type in both languages. But I follow a fair amount of J-vloggers who go to that trouble. For instance, Hiko Simon will often post in both. but he'll post links to articles in Japanese about culture. And unfortunately, the thing about Hiko there is he'll type an interesting description like, oh, this is an interesting article about birth rate decline in Japan. And he'll type the log line, the interest line in English, but then when you click the link, the article is all in Japanese. So if you're not a fluent Japanese speaker, it's no use, right? But he'll do both to encourage, cross-culture whatever. James 11 Colors is another person who probably has more friends that speak Japanese now than he does native speakers. So he posts a lot, and I follow him. He posts a lot in Japanese. That I understand, but I guess I'm talking more about people who just in their personal account just occasionally post just in Japanese. And I posted, when I saw this and just said, for my friends who can speak Japanese, why do you sometimes post in Japanese? And some of them said just because they have Japanese friends and they want them, it's a post for them, which is interesting to me. Like, you other people can't read it, so it just struck me weird. I don't know. Does it strike you weird? And because you're automatically, denying half your audience or whatever it is, whatever the percentages is. Which, I guess if you have Japanese friends and you're posting all the time in English, they either take the time to try to read it if they're studying English, or they just pass over those posts and feel like, well, that information's not for me. And what's interesting too is that sometimes a friend will post in Japanese, and I generally skip them because for me it's still an effort to read Japanese. My speaking has gotten a lot better, but my reading is still pretty poor. And so, if somebody posts in Japanese, unless it's got like 14 likes or something, then I figure, well, but then I'm like, well, why didn't you bother to like, just say something about it in English? I don't know. It doesn't rub me the wrong way, but it kind of like, sometimes I feel like people are doing it just to be like, hey, I can talk in Japanese now. Watch this. And I realize that most people, obviously, that's not their intent. But that's how it comes across sometimes. So I'm curious, I've got a lot of you guys are from Europe, from places where being bilingual is much more common. Maybe, from parts of America where, speaking Spanish and speaking English is much more common for you to be able to do both. So, for those of you who have families, say, that weren't born in America, maybe aren't native English speakers, or you have a large group of friends who speak different languages. When you use Twitter, when you use Facebook, what do you primarily post in? Is it primarily English? And if you're, say, German or French or, Mexican and you use Spanish, do you mind when people, if you're monolingual, if you only speak one language and you see posts in another language, does it annoy you? Do you think, wow, well, why don't I get to know what that post says? Or do you just like, oh, well, that's obviously, for his other friends or blah, 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 or he's talking about culture aspects that I wouldn't know about. So I'm just curious, for those of you who are in this similar situation, how you navigate Facebook and how you deal with people that post in other languages that you can't read. So I sometimes mix mine, and I'll drop in some Japanese, but I'm pretty good if I do that about explaining the Japanese I just wrote or putting in parentheses the direct translation or something. Because, my sister and brother and, most of my family and friends obviously don't speak any Japanese, so let alone, read it. All right, just something off the top of my head. Just wondering how this whole crazy new world of Facebook that we all live in now, how it's evolving, how it's going, and how you approach being able to speak, read, write more than one language if you're on there. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.